On the night of September 19, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, a married couple from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, embarked on a drive home after a pleasant trip to Montreal. The scenic route through the White Mountains should have been a peaceful return journey, but the couple had no idea that they were about to experience something that would forever change their lives and become one of the most famous UFO abduction stories in history. It was a clear night, and the stars above were bright as they made their way down Route 3, a quiet, winding road that cut through the mountainous landscape. As they approached a remote stretch of highway near the village of Franconia, something unusual caught their attention, a strange light hovering in the distance. At first, both Betty and Barney thought it was an airplane, but as they drove closer, the light began to behave erratically. It wasn't moving like a plane or any other conventional aircraft. Instead, it zigzagged and darted across the sky, almost as if it was following them. Barney, an avid observer of the skies and a World War II veteran, initially tried to dismiss it, but as they continued to drive, the light grew larger, and the movement became even more erratic. It was now clear to both of them that this wasn't a plane or any other conventional object. As they drove on, the light seemed to get closer and closer. It began to shine directly down on their car, and at this point, Betty and Barney felt an overwhelming sense of unease. Suddenly, the object appeared to lower and was now directly above them. Barney, in a state of growing panic, stopped the car. The light was so close that it filled the sky. Betty, nervously watching the strange object, saw it hover above them for a few seconds before it began to move again, this time following the car as they started driving once more. The bizarre object continued to follow them for several miles, and as the tension mounted, Barney stopped the car again. At this point, Betty observed what she described as a craft descending in front of them. The object was now hovering just above the road, and Betty could make out its shape, a large, disc-like craft with a series of bright, multicolored lights along the rim. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before. Barney, still in a state of panic, got out of the car to get a better look, his heart pounding as he tried to process what he was seeing. As he gazed at the craft, it suddenly began to move toward them with incredible speed. The sheer velocity and control it exhibited were unnerving. At this point, Barney, terrified, jumped back into the car and urged Betty to drive away as quickly as possible. They sped off, trying to escape whatever it was that had been following them. But their escape was short-lived. Barney and Betty had no idea how much time had passed, but they soon realized that they had lost more than just the strange object in the sky. They had a distinct sense that something was wrong. The night, which had felt normal just hours before, now seemed distorted. They had no memory of the time between when they had first seen the object and when they arrived back in Portsmouth. It was as if hours had been lost, and the peaceful drive had turned into a nightmare. When they arrived home, shaken but not fully understanding what had happened, Betty and Barney tried to make sense of the experience. The sense of fear was palpable, but they couldn't bring themselves to speak about it at first. They brushed it off as just a bizarre, perhaps explainable incident. But as the days went on, Betty began to experience vivid dreams and unsettling memories that she couldn't shake off. Her mind was replaying fragments of what she had seen during that night, as though the experience was slowly starting to emerge from the fog of their missing time. Both Betty and Barney had begun to sense that there was more to the story, something they couldn't fully recall. The couple knew that something had happened during that gap in time, but the details were lost to them. For several days, they struggled with the growing sense that they had not just been followed by a strange object, but that something far more terrifying had occurred. Betty, unable to ignore her growing anxiety, began to experience vivid dreams and flashbacks. These were not just ordinary dreams. These were incredibly detailed and disturbing recollections of being taken aboard a spacecraft, of being examined by strange, non-human beings. She could recall the beings' large, black eyes, their grayish skin, and their smooth, featureless faces. These dreams became so real and so intense that she couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't just dreams. She had the unmistakable sense that she had lived through them. She had been aboard the spacecraft, subjected to a strange examination, and had interacted with beings who were not human. Betty's dreams and her vivid memories began to distress her, and she eventually spoke to Barney about them. He, too, had started to experience a sense of unease and growing confusion about the events of that night. He had no recollection of what had happened during the missing time, but his mind kept returning to the moment when the craft had appeared, hovering above them. Both Betty and Barney were beginning to realize that what they had witnessed was no ordinary UFO sighting. It was something much more extraordinary, something that could not easily be explained away. The Hills' unsettling experience was only the beginning of a journey that would lead them down an unexpected and terrifying path. In the weeks following the encounter, Betty and Barney's anxiety grew, and both struggled with missing memories and vivid dreams. As they grappled with what they had experienced, the couple sought the help of a psychiatrist, hoping to uncover the truth behind their unsettling experiences. After their harrowing encounter in the White Mountains, Betty and Barney Hill were left grappling with a sense of confusion and dread. Neither of them could remember much of the lost time between when the UFO had followed them and when they returned home, and the unsettling dreams and flashbacks that Betty experienced only deepened their anxiety. Betty's vivid recollections of being aboard a strange craft, and Barney's increasing sense that something more had happened that night, pushed them to seek answers. The couple knew they had to confront what they had experienced, but the truth seemed just out of reach. After several weeks of struggling with their memories, Betty and Barney decided to visit a psychiatrist. The couple hoped that by talking to a professional, they might uncover what had really happened to them. Dr. Benjamin Simon, a Boston-based psychiatrist, agreed to take on their case, and he quickly became a pivotal figure in their search for answers. Dr. Simon was known for his work with soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and his expertise in hypnosis made him an ideal candidate for helping Betty and Barney recover the lost memories. The couple agreed to undergo hypnosis, a technique that Dr. Simon believed could help them access the missing time and uncover what had truly occurred during that fateful night. It was under hypnosis that the true nature of their experience began to unfold. Betty, while in a deeply relaxed state, began to recall vivid, startling details of what had happened during the lost time. The hypnosis sessions revealed that Betty and Barney had not merely encountered a strange light in the sky. They had been taken aboard an extraterrestrial spacecraft. According to Betty's recovered memories, she and Barney were both abducted by beings from another world. The alien creatures were described as having large, black eyes, thin, grayish skin, and a small, frail build. Betty recalled feeling powerless as the beings performed an examination on her. She vividly remembered being subjected to strange procedures, which included being placed on a table and having a needle inserted into her navel, along with other invasive procedures that were both physical and psychological in nature. Her memories were fragmented, but the vivid sensations of fear and helplessness were undeniable. Barney, too, underwent hypnosis, and his memories echoed Betty's. He recalled seeing the same strange beings with large eyes and hearing them communicate in a language he couldn't understand. He had vivid images of being immobilized during the encounter and experiencing the feeling of being examined by the alien beings. During his hypnosis session, he recalled feeling a deep sense of fear and anxiety, but struggled to articulate what had happened, as though his mind had blocked out the full extent of the experience. The hypnosis sessions led Betty and Barney to believe that they had both been abducted and subjected to a physical examination by extraterrestrial beings. The details that emerged during the sessions were chilling: alien beings, a strange craft, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness that the couple had never experienced before. The recovered memories were not just dreamlike or abstract. They were vivid and consistent, providing a disturbing clarity to what had happened during those missing hours. While the hypnosis sessions uncovered more of what Betty and Barney had experienced, the couple still struggled with the implications of their abduction. They now had memories of being taken aboard an alien spacecraft, but the world around them remained skeptical. Friends and family members were either dismissive or fearful of the story, and the couple's experience was labeled as a freak occurrence by many. Still, Betty and Barney's conviction in the truth of their experience remained unwavering. The Hill story would go on to become one of the most famous and widely publicized UFO abduction cases in history. As the details of their encounter began to spread, they were interviewed by the press and appeared on television, becoming the faces of the burgeoning UFO abduction phenomenon. Their story, however, was not without controversy. Skeptics argued that their hypnosis-induced memories were nothing more than the product of suggestion, and that the couple's recollections were influenced by the media and popular UFO lore. In the years following the abduction, Betty and Barney continued to speak about their experience. They were adamant that what had happened to them was real, and their story helped bring the concept of alien abductions into the public eye. Betty, in particular, wrote about her experience in a book titled A Common Sense Approach to UFOs, which detailed the events of that night and the aftermath of their abduction. The couple's account became a foundational story in the larger narrative of UFO sightings and alien encounters. Betty's continued involvement in UFO research and her efforts to promote the truth about their experience led her to become an advocate for other individuals who claimed to have been abducted. She met with other people who had similar stories and helped them process their own experiences. Despite the skepticism and mockery they often faced, Betty and Barney remained convinced that they had been taken by extraterrestrial beings, and their story continued to be a touchstone for the growing movement of alien encounter reports. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction became one of the earliest and most publicized cases of alien abduction in the 1960s, and it helped pave the way for a surge of similar stories in the years that followed. While the Hill story was often met with disbelief, it resonated with many who felt that their own experiences were not being taken seriously. Betty and Barney's courage in coming forward with their story, despite the ridicule and challenges they faced, helped establish a dialogue about alien encounters that would continue to evolve throughout the late 20th century. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction story, though widely publicized, did not come without its share of challenges and personal costs. In the years following their experience, the couple faced a wave of skepticism, ridicule, and emotional strain, but they also became icons in the UFO and alien abduction communities. Their story changed the course of alien encounter narratives and laid the foundation for the many abduction accounts that would follow. Betty and Barney were often met with disbelief and derision, even from close friends and family members. The idea that they had been abducted by extraterrestrials was, and in many circles still is, an incredibly difficult one to accept. The couple's initial reactions to their experience, uncertainty, confusion, and a desire to keep their story private, were natural given the extraordinary nature of the events they had experienced. However, as time passed and their memories became clearer through hypnosis, they felt a responsibility to speak out, even in the face of ridicule. Betty, in particular, became a vocal advocate for other alleged abduction victims. Her belief that their experience was real drove her to write about it, speak publicly, and attend conferences related to UFOs and extraterrestrial life. She gave numerous interviews and appearances, often explaining their story in great detail. In her book, A Common Sense Approach to UFOs, Betty outlined the details of the abduction, the hypnosis sessions, and the aftermath. Through her writing and interviews, she hoped to provide validation for others who had similar experiences, believing that those who had been abducted needed to have their stories heard and respected. Despite the personal cost of their public story, Betty and Barney's determination to speak out played a crucial role in legitimizing the idea of alien abductions. Their case became one of the first widely publicized abduction accounts, which would later inspire many others to come forward with their own stories of encounters with extraterrestrials. Over the years, the narrative of alien abductions would grow, with reports from individuals across the globe describing similar experiences, being taken aboard UFOs, examined by alien beings, and returned with memories of the event that were often hazy or fragmented. For Betty and Barney, however, the psychological toll was undeniable. In addition to the public scrutiny and personal challenges, their lives were forever altered by the abduction. Betty experienced vivid dreams and memories of the event, and she continued to have a deep emotional connection to the experience for the rest of her life. These memories were often disturbing and not easily processed, but she believed them to be crucial to understanding what had happened to her and Barney. Over time, Betty became more comfortable discussing the experience, but the emotional weight of it remained. Barney, on the other hand, struggled more deeply with the event's psychological effects. His hypnosis sessions revealed that he had experienced an even more profound sense of fear and trauma than Betty, particularly surrounding the alien beings and the sense of powerlessness he felt during the abduction. His emotional recovery was slower, and he often wrestled with feelings of vulnerability and confusion. His reluctance to discuss the details of the abduction publicly reflected his ongoing struggles with the experience. The couple's abduction story had a lasting impact not only on their own lives, but on the broader UFO community. The Hill case became a touchstone for subsequent abduction stories, providing an early and widely publicized example that would inspire future researchers, books, and documentaries. The notion of abduction by extraterrestrials, once considered fringe or absurd, began to take hold in popular culture. The Hill's case contributed to the evolving narrative of UFO encounters, one that expanded beyond sightings of strange lights in the sky and into the realm of personal experiences involving alien beings and otherworldly phenomena. As the years passed, Betty continued to champion the cause of abduction victims, attending conferences, speaking to the media, and meeting with others who claimed to have had similar experiences. She became known for her role as one of the first individuals to publicly advocate for the abduction phenomenon, sharing her story and offering support to others who believed they had been taken by extraterrestrials. Betty's advocacy led her to be interviewed by UFO researchers, and she even worked with a number of other alleged abduction victims, encouraging them to come forward and share their experiences. Barney, however, distanced himself from the growing UFO community. He struggled with the psychological effects of his abduction experience for the rest of his life, experiencing periods of depression and anxiety. He passed away in 1969, just 8 years after the abduction. While Betty continued to advocate for the truth of their story, the loss of Barney weighed heavily on her, and she carried the emotional burden of their shared experience alone. Despite the personal cost of their involvement in the public eye, Betty Hill remained steadfast in her belief that their encounter was genuine. She continued to give interviews and speak publicly about the experience, even after Barney's death, until her own passing in 2004. Betty's legacy lives on as one of the first and most famous abductees in the history of UFO lore. She is remembered for her courage in the face of skepticism and for her role in bringing the topic of alien abductions into the mainstream. Today, the Betty and Barney Hill abduction remains one of the most significant events in the history of UFO phenomena. Their story continues to inspire countless books, documentaries, and investigations into the possibility of extraterrestrial life and the nature of alien encounters. The Hill case is cited as one of the first instances where hypnosis and recovered memories played a crucial role in uncovering details about an abduction, and their account has become a cornerstone of the UFO community. Though many still question the validity of the Hill's experiences, their story has undoubtedly shaped the way the world thinks about UFOs and alien encounters. Betty and Barney Hill helped to elevate the discussion from mere sightings to personal, deeply emotional experiences that continue to resonate with those who believe in the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Their story paved the way for others who felt they had experienced the same mysterious phenomena, showing them that they were not alone. The story of Betty and Barney Hill serves as a powerful reminder of the courage it takes to speak out about an extraordinary experience, even in the face of doubt and ridicule. Whether you believe in the Hill's encounter or not, their story has undeniably played a pivotal role in shaping the UFO and alien abduction narrative. Let their legacy inspire us to challenge the limits of our understanding and to always seek the truth, no matter how extraordinary or controversial it may seem.